So, with the last episode of the Star Wars show Andor being released, I must say I really enjoyed the show. It was such a fresh breath of air for Star Wars in general, and it was much needed. So, a sort of new perspective. And I think it's a really necessary one for the whole universe, I should say. I think Star Wars has often been seen up from above. It's these large scale battles that sort of show everything and at the same time nothing. Don't get me wrong, I love Star Wars. It's been a big part of my childhood, and it resonates with so many people, and it's a success because it's good and it's a fantastic medium to tell stories, and there has been a lot of good stories in Star Wars. But I always felt that it's been very large scale and not very personal, maybe. And I think Andor really filled in that sort of gap, where you have sort of different characters who have more personal struggles. And in like Andor, you can see the people fighting and being suppressed, and you can see how they sort of fight and when they choose not to fight, and the sort of diligence that has to go in to make the plans work, and the work. Like, you don't just see the flower, you see the whole growth of the plant. Like, it's a very fine process, but it's very dangerous for the people being involved. And it's a really necessary thing to be showed, I think. And another thing that I really appreciated about the show is that it sort of gave a more nuanced look into these different sides. You have the good guys and the bad guys, and the good guys in this show aren't perfect by no means. And that's a thing I also maybe had my complications about Star Wars in the past, that it was always very much the good guys versus the bad guys. Sometimes it changed and you got subverted and all of that, but it was somewhat generic. And as I said, don't get me wrong, I love Star Wars, and I think in Andor, it's a very fresh perspective as well on the side of the good guys and the bad guys. You have the rebellion, and they aren't afraid to show that it's not just pretty work, it's a lot of dirty work. Something you see with Luthen a lot. He has to sacrifice people, he has to do nasty things. And he says so himself that, he isn't a good guy, but he's working for something hopefully good. And maybe him doing bad things is worth it in the end if something greater can be established. And I think having that sort of perspective, or that sort of lens, to show that, you don't just start a rebellion over a night and win and be victorious and it's all pretty, and it's real work. It's a struggle, and I think they've done that brilliantly, and I'm really looking forward to seeing season 2, where maybe it will lead up to Rogue One and then the later movies. And we've seen a lot of insight into the good guys, or Luthen and his working of spy nets and all of that. But we've also seen a sort of different side of the Empire, the bad guys. I mean, they are ruthless. They see people no more than like vermin or parasites, or not even that. They are just numbers or nothing at all. And something to be taken advantage of. And I think you have that side. That's how it's always been for the Empire. But you also see in this show, Andor, how people are just normal people in the Empire. They make mistakes, and sometimes they are successful, they get satisfaction from their work. Sometimes they are angry about their bosses, sometimes they are happy. Sometimes you even feel a bit of joy with them. You're always almost rooting for these characters who are supposed to be on the bad side. And I think that's brilliant. Like when Didramira has to find Andor or find the sort of similarities, and if there's a rebellion starting, you almost want her to succeed or see how she's gonna do. Because she's just a well-written character who feels real. She has ambition, she has goals, she wants to accomplish something. And I think it's so genuine and real. You sort of just follow along the story and you don't question that this is a tyrannical sort of empire she's working for. And sometimes you see with characters like Cyril Karn, someone who believes they are doing the right thing. They truly, truly do believe they are. And you can't even blame them for it. And you feel for them. Because they are so passionate, and they truly believe, and they have the right to believe. They see bad things done by the good guys, quote unquote the good guys. They see them doing sometimes horrible things, killing their colleagues, for example, and they want revenge, and you feel for that revenge. You want them to succeed almost. You root for them as well. And I think Cyril Karn is a perfect example of that sort of character. He wants to make the world a good place. I think he has his heart in the right place somewhere. I don't know where the right place is necessarily and what the right thing is all the time, and he wants to find out who this murderer, Cassian Andor, who killed his colleagues, and he wants to get to the bottom of this mystery and solve it and find out who he is and hold him accountable. And that's something we haven't sort of encountered in Star Wars before, or in fiction at all, I should say. Heroes who are accountable for their actions. If sometimes heroes just go off and yes, they kill the bad guys, but in the action of killing the bad guys, they also harm the whole civilization of innocent people and the whole structure, and they do a lot more damage than they do good. And I think it's sort of a representation of that, but on a more personal level between a character and his ambition. And I think that's very brilliantly done. So I think this show, Andor, really fills the universe with interesting thoughts and flavor and a sort of perspective that's very much necessary. Because if you're gonna deal with war and serious topic, I think you need to cover it in a more serious way and actually show the pain, the suffering, the complications, the complicated bits, how characters can do bad things for a good cause or do good things when they are surrounded by evil. And I think all of it is necessary to show the complication of, or to show the complexity of the whole situation. And I mean, it's a galaxy-wide conflict. It's obviously gonna be complex. So I'm really happy that this show has really showed that, or it's starting to explain it or really display it in a good way. So that's why I like Andor so much.